She's going to point at me when we're ready. Oh. Okay. Welcome, everyone. This is our last lecture for our 2022 Fredi Schiff Levin Lecture Series, which is graciously sponsored by the Levin family. The lecture series honors Fredi Schiff Levin, her legacy as a member of the Provincetown arts community, by inviting artists, curators, scholars to speak at PAM. We are so grateful to the Levin family for their continued support of this annual program. Thank you for joining us. Tonight we welcome the panel of speakers, curator Michelle Law, artists Midge Battelle, Rebecca Bruyn, and Amy Heller to discuss their exhibition Out of the Blue, which if you have not seen yet, you'll get an opportunity to see right after the lecture. Please join me in welcoming them.
Can everybody hear me? Okay. So, we were asked to do a very brief overview of what cyanotype is, and as some of you know, you've seen the Indie, or the Independent, and the Globe. There is a little bit of that, but let me tell you a very brief history of how it got started. It is the earliest and safest photographic process known. It began by this gentleman, Sir John Herschel. He was actually looking for chemicals that would allow him to copy his notes. He was a researcher, scientist, mathematician, and the wonderful thing is on August 16th, 1842, which was just a few weeks ago, 180 years ago, he noted in his research documents the word cyanotype. So it is officially now 180 years, and the advantages of this process is just its simplicity. It's non-silver chemicals plus water and sunlight, and that creates a reaction with the sun. Then a year later, Atkins, who was a friend of the family, she actually is probably considered one of the first photographers in the history of photography. She chose to do photograms that create books. She was interested in algae and seaweed, and she created amazing books of this. I don't know if there was other things that she did, but she had several books that she made of the same thing over and over and over, and they're all in very different museums around the world. So it was quite exciting. Then it kind of got lost in the history. I think part of it was not getting a lot of published works out there, and you know, some people did it, and then of course the daguerreotype and other kinds of photography came along. But later in the 1800s, it was noted that architects and engineers could use the process to create the blueprint. Hence, this is how it started. It was a low-cost way to reproduce architectural drawings, and we do still use the term, as you know. By the end of this last century, cyanotype printing became actually more than for photograms or photography. Resources started to just appear. AlternativePhotography.com began about 22 years ago. I'm not sure how long ago World Cyanotype Day in September started, but it is a huge event for all of us around the world. And it's no longer just used for photography and photograms, which you will see in the exhibit. Just very simple, the photography of cyanotype is that this is a work that I did of negative, and the areas of the print that block the light coming through do not react to the light and remain white, and they're considered unconverted. That's the coating that's washed away. Any areas where the light came through to convert it to blue remains on the paper. Photograms, pretty simple, laying objects on sensitized paper or fabric that you'll also see in the exhibit. So before I start, any questions or comments about the history? Okay.
So is it the chemicals that makes it blue?
Mm-hmm. And the sun, the ultraviolet light. So I'm just going to give you a very brief, my history that began my partner and I moved here in '97. I joined a camera club. I've been a photographer for many, many years. I joined the camera club, And that's when I first was introduced to Photoshop. And I'll never forget that my response was, I don't want to do this. This is bad. And so I decided to seek out other ways, and I met Midge Battelle, who was my teacher. I attended a weekend workshop with her. She then taught me how to make negatives 3x4 from Kodachrome slides. And so that's what I began doing, and I still do that. I also was testing for myself Holga negatives, which is a very, very small negative. I have gone through family negatives that I found. That's my sister when she was very little. And then before digital came along for me, I was layering transparencies, and this is a piece called Lush Life. And of course, the collages I've always loved doing. The other thing that I've been working on are T-tone, and this is just an example of a T-toned image where I create the image as a cyanotype and remove the blue chemical and then have it sit in tannin, the tea bags, and that's what turns it to the brown T-tone color.
And I also have experimented with tea, and believe it or not, red rose tea makes it a reddish brown. Just thought I'd add that in case you were wondering.
Good to know. I've been using Salada tea, and it's brown.
Green tea does well too.
Then in 2010, I entered a competition for the 100th anniversary of the building of the monument that was sponsored by the museum as well as the vineyard, Truro Vineyards. And they wanted my cyanotype, so it became part of their limited edition of wine. And essentially from that point on, it kind of pushed me into doing more of this work. Corteil Gallery invited me to join them, and that has been where I've been showing a lot of the work in cyanotype. These are some examples of what I've done. I'm drawn to buildings and landscape and boats. There's all kinds you can see on the websites. However, here I was saying I don't want to do Photoshop. And lo and behold, 2013, as I'm just going around Facebook, and I come across this thing called iPhoneography, digital art, mobile photography, and I started to download apps and take classes and teach myself and learn from other people, and I was hooked, completely hooked. So an example, here's an old photograph I took in bad weather. It's an original. This is all post-processing is how it's done on the phone, the iPhone or the iPad. And this is the final image. So it gives me the freedom to create layers, textures, different colors, tones, and who knew that this is what I would be doing after Photoshop. This is a combination now of using digital art and a camera, my iPhone. This is a drive-by of the dunes. This is also another image I took with the camera and put it through, post-processed it in the apps. One of the things I wanted to say is, how did I get to where I am today with this body of work that's on exhibit? And that is that my partner and I love to walk the streets of Provincetown, and I have been in love with architecture and history for many, many years. And so I would take my iPhone, snap something, take it back, and process it. And so that's how I got to a new body of work called Looking Towards Our Past. I think for me to explain how each one is done is a difficult thing because, to be honest, I don't remember every single step. But I will say that I chose to take walks and drive-bys and photograph those homes or houses that have always been my favorite in this town. And there are more, but these are the ones that stood out. I like to paint with the sensitized chemicals so that you never know. I don't cover the entire paper, So you'll see streaks of white in some of them as kind of antiquity, and the idea is it's a way to just commemorate this town and the architecture that's here. So it was from the beginning of the 1800s, the last one is 1950. So that is what you will see.
Rebecca, are those dates the dates that the building for the wall?
I would call those estimated dates. As you know, the town hall burned down in the 1870s. So anything built before that, we don't know. So I honestly don't know, but the dates are from the town website.
So the skies there, had you painted on the paper with some chemical to get that?
I did that all in the app. So the texture, the clouds, the being out of focus, the anything that's not the original photo was done by bringing it through the apps. I also teach, by the way, and I have a class coming up here at PAM in October. So, but that's a good question. It's only, you just prep watercolor paper, put the negative on, and bake it in the sunshine.
Are you still using film, or are you still using 120 and older?
No.
Is it available?
I don't know about a Holga. It might be. I do know that negatives and darkrooms work is coming back, and more people are starting to do that kind of work. Yeah.
Why not is the film available?
Is the film available to purchase? Yeah, I don't know. It may be.
Holga, for Holga, 120 film? Sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure
More
Hans,
expensive.
Yeah, 120 black and white.
Pardon me? I'm
Kodak
sure
probably, or
Fuji probably, Ilford.
I bet you Hans might have it.
yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah, sure. It's plentiful.
the question was whether or not they're making the film for the Holga camera. So, okay.
Great. Thanks, Rebecca.
That's great.
Good work. Yeah. I guess I can. Hi, everybody. I'm wired for sound here, and I'm Midge Battelle, and I'm a photographer and a painter, and been pretty much a resident of Provincetown since 1967. Left and came back a few times, but this has been home. And I studied fine art at Mass College of Art, and graduated from there, and majored in photography. And I've done a lot of photography, black and white, a lot of darkroom work. And then I got into the alternative photo printmaking process with a class at school. And I've done the big 20 by 24 Polaroids, and just had a great education in photography. And so I did that for a lot of years, and then when I came down here, I didn't have access to a darkroom. So I started doing Polaroid transfers and alternative photography, and just went with that. And really love working with the cyanotype because I don't really work with negatives. I work with found things. And the work in this show is all sort of weeds and flowers, and some of them I actually do drawings on, graphite drawings, and so they'll be a little bit more dimensional and have a little bit more going on with it. But, oh, I should probably show you them while I'm talking. That's the first one I did, and it's the wet cyanotype process. It's the same process that Rebecca was talking about, only you can put the objects on the paper while it's still wet, or you can let the paper dry, put the objects on it, and then, you know, squirt it with whatever you want to put on it. This, I use a variety of different things. You can see there's a pattern in there that's from soap suds, and the yellow is turmeric, and I loved the effect. That's not in the show, but that is. And I think that's one of the, this one actually was a drawing of a cockatoo. And I mean, like I think it was in 2004 or something like that, I just did a really simple cyanotype on it. And then when I started doing the wet cyanotypes, I pulled out some older work, and I thought, well, let me just see what happens. And that happened, and I was so happy with it. So that's in the exhibit. That's one of the last pieces I did for the show. I had a piece that I really liked, but I didn't know what to do with it because it didn't really, it was not where I wanted it to be, and I just started cutting it up and playing with it, and that happened. So I did a few more, and they're in the show, and I think it's a kind of a nice direction that I'm going to play with. This is one of my favorite pieces, and these are all wet cyanotypes. That's a drawing similar to the cockatoo. It was just a vase. And then I thought, well, I'm going to take it to the next place. And that's what happened. And there's no, that's a drawing. There's no, I mean, it's really a lot of luck. It's really serendipity. The sun is different on different days. The chemistry is different. The water is different. So I just, my method is to just go with it, throw things at it, do whatever, get it out there. Some of them would cook for 2 hours, some of them would cook for 4 hours. It was just, let me just see what happens if, you know, I let this go in the sun all day. And really, really interesting effects. And so that's a drawing that I went back into. That is just a straight on, I had a batch of alstroemeria flowers, and it's a wet cyanotype. And you know, where the lighter areas are is where I put soap suds that sort of went into the chemistry. And it does what it does. So you can't make it happen. And you can't make a duplicate of it either. And you can see the white dots and whatever, that's salt and you know, granular things that I throw on it. And I really like the Queen Anne's lace. I work a lot with the Queen Anne's lace. I love the shape of it. And I'm not sure how that happened. That was really recent, and it might have been a day when the water was different or something different was going on, or maybe I left it out there not long enough. But I really like what happened. And I can't tell you how it happened. And I like to work simply and minimally. And so this was just a sort of a straight-on series that I saw. And very simple. This was part of a bigger piece that I pared down and did a little bit more with. And I don't know how that happened, but I like it a lot. It's called Tristesse. And there's a lot of feeling that comes out in these. I don't particularly make it happen, but they sort of have that aspect to them. It's just part of the process. And I love working with the alstroemeria flower. It makes the best, it just makes the best shadow picture. And I only started working with the wet cyanotype a year ago, because I hadn't done this work for about several years because I was focusing on painting. And so when I was invited to be part of this show, I thought, well, I better start making cyanotypes.
So I don't quite understand. You put weeds or flowers on the wet paper, is that right?
Yeah, this could have been wet, and I added more wet to it.
Okay, so how do you know what it's going to look like?
I don't. I know, I like what it looks like. I like the finished product. That's all I know.
How do you know when it's done? How do you know how long to wait?
No. It's, you know, it can be anywhere from 2 hours to 4 hours. You'll get different effects, and if it's an overcast day, you leave it out longer. This doesn't depend on bright sun because they're pressed tightly to the paper and clamped. I've worked with just the loose, and you need the really bright sunlight to cast the shadow. It's a different kind of work. So I really love this process with the wet cyanotype. And that's from a drawing that I did and went back into and played with, and I had a lot of fun with. That's one that I put through, that's probably 3 or 4 passes. Put it through, coat it again, do something else, and just go until it's what I like. And there's a kind of a dark, watery, deepness, ocean thing with that. And that's another one similar with the Elstrom area. This is, I'm not sure what that is. I would just walk around and find things that would have all the shapes to them that I like. I don't know what they are, most of them. That's another one. That one is a drawing of the monument. Most of my drawings are kind of cartoony because that's just what happens. And then I kind of saw that before I made it. Sometimes I see it before I make it. And it was just one of those lucky, serendipitous times. And, you know, I work really intuitively, so I can't even explain how to do it. And that's it. And I'm going to pass this to Amy.
Hi, my name's Amy Heller, and I'm addicted to cyanotype. For many years, I've been addicted to cyanotype. And this is kind of the acceptance speech part of it. I wanted to thank the museum, everybody at the museum, Chris McCarthy, and everybody who's worked so hard on the show, and my co-conspirators here, the artists, and especially Michelle Law. Yeah. I mean, she's done an amazing job being our curator and installing, but Jim Zimmerman, oh my God, it was supposed to be a 1-day install, I think, and it was 2 days, probably because of me. And he did an amazing job as well. But you know, if you're not a member of PAM, become a member. Make sure you look around. This is a fantastic 12 by 12 show. You know, put in your bids. Please go into the museum shop. And also, our work is for sale in the exhibition. And if you're interested in anything, you can go to the front desk, and there's a price list there. But please support the museum. They do such wonderful things. So let's give Chris a round of applause. Oh yeah, and I want to thank my husband too. And sitting.
Oh, thank my cat, thank my dog.
My husband, Bart Wiseman, and my friend Gail Brown, who's sitting next to him, who's an incredible artist, lives in town, and is my co-conspirator as well, and helps me with just working out some of these difficult things. So thank you, everybody. All right, now we can get to some actual pictures. Okay, well this is, when I started doing cyanotype, it was early 1990s, and I was at George Washington University, and I did these with UV lamps, and it was I guess it was for printmaking. And I had to make negatives. This was before digital, and it took me 8 hours sometimes to make a negative in pitch darkness. So I'm sitting here with a tray, and I had to make, not fun. Thank you, digital photography. So I did, simultaneously, I did the cyanotypes. There's another one, there's another one. And then, at the same time, my thesis was on the history of human locomotion photography. I love motion. Since I was a little kid, I used to dance to the Beatles. You could see me jumping off the fireplace, you know, just dancing around. And so this really appealed to me, and I took a photo history class and fell in love with the work of Etienne Jules Marie and Edward Muybridge. as my mom would say, you're the daughter of Muybridge. And I'd say, no, I'm not. It would be a terrible thing. He was crazy. So there's another, and that's called Ode to Muybridge. So now you know where I'm coming from. And then fast forward, Bart and I moved to Cape Cod, and I started getting interested in doing cyanotype. But I wanted to do something different, and I started working in fabric. I love unexpected surfaces, and fabric was just one of those things. And this happens to be a toy horse that was found on the beach. It's actually in our book, Lost and Found, Time, Tide, and Treasures, that I did with Gail Brown, and that's from her collection. I love that horse. You may not get it back. No, you do have it back. I may have to take it. And this one, my favorite thing in the world, I love skate egg cases. I know some people are creeped out by them. I love them. They look like dancers to me, and they're very figural. And this is called Skate Swimming, and that's in the exhibition. You can see that, and also on fabric. And those poor skates. No, those are the skate egg cases. And somebody told me, this was made, I think, what, 2006 or 2010? Now that we have COVID, they said, oh, it looks like COVID masks.
Right.
Oh, I wish you hadn't said that.
Okay, now this has 3 different methods here. The monument that I photographed, that's with a negative. And then the cruise ship, just like out there. And the plane and the cloud, that's cut out, and that's done as a photogram directly on the surface. And then I drew on some acetate, I drew the waves. That would make a really good t-shirt for Swim for Life, don't you think? Just hinting. Okay. Then, here's something that happened though, because I don't know if some of you have seen some of this stuff, but I was doing this, these are on fabric, x-rays. I love x-rays. I'm the weird one I go to the doctor and I say, can I see, can I see? Okay, so this was my hand x-ray, and I loved the way they posed my hands. It was like this, and then, but the middle one is, if you look very closely, it has 6 fingers. And I did, these are fish x-rays. I did not x-ray fish, and shell x-rays, but there was something missing. And what was missing was the light. And I've been, you know, I'm from the old school of photography where you had slides and you worked with the light table. And so I needed that element of light. So I started doing some research, and I got these LED boxes and frames, and I started doing collage with them. So they're mixed media LED cyanotypes. These are on silk. And I have to have them modified. The boxes are modified, and then I diffuse the light with diffusion paper. And this one was from 2015, and it's called Like Mother, Like Daughter. And that is a portrait of my mother when she was 18 in New York. She went into a photo studio, and this is in the late 30s or something, and a young woman did not do that. You just didn't do that, but she did. And I never saw this photo until after she died. My aunt was kind of squirreling everything away. And I saw that when I saw this photo, I just started crying, because I said, my God, you're so beautiful. And she had written a couple books, and I had just gotten a book deal with Gail for our book, Lost and Found, Time, Tide, and Treasures. That's in the bookshop here. And I had never done a selfie with a phone. I'm like, what? Who does a selfie of their neck? Well, I did. Oh yeah, my neck's really interesting. No, but it just happened to work, and I used negatives, positives, and washers, and be careful when you use washers. Some of my newer works, I used washers, and they stuck to my arm, and then they went into the garbage disposal, and I thought there was only one. Well, apparently there were 15, so Bart was not happy with it. You could hear this crunching sound of the metal, and he was picking stuff out, and he's looking at me. We laugh about it now, but it wasn't funny at the time. It was really horrifying. Okay, and then here's another one. I started getting into the sea theme, so I'd photograph some horseshoe crabs, and you can see the bit of visual pun. I have horseshoes there, and I love seaweed, and I was photographing seaweed, so some are negatives, some are positives, and the background is the cyanotype on silk. And they glowed, you know, because you have the LED lights on. And then, let's see, that was, I made in 2010, and there's a positive on one side and a negative on the other side. And that's a little antique camera. It's a lighter. I bought it here in town, as a matter of fact. And I was invited to go to the PAM Gala, and I had table number 3, so tripod 3. And so they sold one, but then I kept one, so. And then I was getting more into 3D, so I jumped from 2D to 3D, and this one is called Heart of Orion, and it was in an exhibition at the Cultural Center called Heavenly Bodies, and it's got rope and pins, and well, I guess you don't have the reverse side. Now, is this the movie? How do you do the click again? Okay. I don't see anything.
Mm-hmm.
Click again. Nope, go back. Nope, that's not, no, there's a video. Isn't there a video? So it wasn't enough that I went to, what? I'm always the problem child, sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, anyway, so I went from doing 3D, and I liked using the mannequins. I had a small mannequin, and I made several of them on motorized bases. And that kind of harkened back to the motion studies I was doing. And so in the video that hopefully we can see, it turns round and round, and I use rope and pins and needles and acupuncture needles along the spine of it, and I called it Stuck. Stuck 3 is that one. Because I was getting stuck with things and also with acupuncture needles. So, okay, should I advance it? Or no? Well, I can keep talking. But anyway, I've really been exploring, still using the cyanotype on fabric, and I jumped from doing dry cyanotype to wet cyanotype, just like Midge did, and you'll see them in the other room, of course, but it was so funny because I also started about a year ago, and we're skipping the video. Trust me, it moves, and it's in my basement if you want to see it. So anyway, well, now I get ahead of myself. We'll get to the wet cyanotype. So I started working with the egg shape. These are wooden eggs, and one of my series is called Still Lives, and I was photographing classical sculpture at the Met and National Gallery of Art, and some more contemporary sculptors, and also I was making up my own little patterns, geometric patterns. And I was really interested in that. And then I ended up making a dozen eggs that are in the other room, plus 4 big ones. So you can see those there. Okay, wait, did I go? Yeah, there. Okay, so I have 4 of these verticals that are kind of like a Chinese scroll, and they're about 39 inches long. So I ended up going from a small format to a larger format. And these are on silk, and they're wet cyanotypes, and you can see the seaweed, the photographs of seaweed. I also used snow pea pods. I use food in it sometimes, and some of them have dogwood petals. And this one, I really decided I like working with the sea because we're surrounded by the sea. I swim I'm so lucky, I have a friend who has a pool, an outdoor pool, then I have a friend who has an indoor pool. I'm very lucky. So we do this meditation at the end where you're just floating around and you feel like, I honestly feel like I'm a piece of seaweed. I am part of the water, I'm floating there, and that's what these feel like for me. And it's very relaxing, just like this. Anyway. Here is, and that one's called Seaweed Elegy. This one is called Liminal Octopi. And there's a lot of movement in it, and there's actually a couple layers of silk, and then those circular things. I mean, I normally don't give stuff away, but onions. I use onions. So the story is, I was experimenting with all kinds of stuff, and onions and turmeric and vinegar. It smelled lovely on a hot day. And we had these people who were just moving in next door. With their masks on, they looked at me in horror. I looked like I was cooking up a brew, and it smelled horrible. And I said, don't worry, I'm, you know, this is art. It's not, it's art. I don't cook outside. And they said, like, yeah, right. Then, just to let you know, the series, I call it See Me, SEA/me. And then when Gail and I were doing the book, I was really intrigued by sand patterns, and I started photographing it so much so Gail said, this would look great in our book. And so we used it in between chapters, and so I put it together and put it in a grid, and I have some sand shadow ones, and sorry, shameless promotion. In the bookstore, the cards are for sale. I usually don't sell stuff. I keep it in my basement. So now I could say, yes, it's for sale, along with, you know, everything else. I have scarves there, what have you. But I think that's about it. No, wait. I have more. There's more. There it is, Sand Shadows. And here's the cover of our book, Lost and Found, Time, Tide, and Treasures. And that picture is from Paul Bowen's collection. He was one of the 6 artists. And amazing. These are clay marbles, and they're teeth, they're buttons. And then here's from our show at Cape Cod Museum of Art that ended January 2nd of 2022. And that's one of Paul Bowen's sculptures, and there's Bogosian stuff on the left, there's Gail Brown over here, Betty Bodian, Judy Berkowitz, myself, and who am I missing? Was that 6? Okay. Anyway, it was a great show, and it was great fun. And I love the blue of the walls. Then, one of our proud moments, the Washington Post just did a story on our collection. So Gail Brown and me and some stuff from my family collection. But we also had some great news because we are today, I guess it'll be in tomorrow's paper, the Boston Globe, Kate McQuaid reviewed our show. It's a really nice review. And And then just to show off, also the Provincetown Independent, John D'Addario, it's his first feature in there, so he did that. They did a beautiful, beautiful job. I mean, I'm so bowled over, and so, I mean, I feel so honored. I feel honored to be part of this, this series, too. When I was a little kid, I knew Fredi Schiff Levin, as a matter of fact. I knew her, and her daughter-in-law, I don't know if she's here today, Tony, but, oh, hi. Thank you, Tony, your daughter, and her late husband, John, so thank you for this. Then I believe that is it. Any questions? Yes?
How does the archival issue, do they last for very long? Does it affect the substrate chemicals?
If they're properly rinsed, oh, you want me to repeat the question? How do they last? Are they archival? How do you make them archival? Okay. Well, you have to make sure that you rinse them properly, for one thing, and you don't want to have them in bright, bright sunlight. When I was first doing these in grad school, I would have these nightmares that my portfolio, I opened it up to show to my professor, and it was blank. And when I woke up, I ran downstairs, and no, but they're very archival. As a matter of fact, I mean, look at all the stuff that's, look at Anna Atkins things.
Yeah,
I mean, they're
still there.
Great,
Yeah.
just,
And when I frame my work, I always make sure it's the ultraviolet, was that special glass to minimize.
You sort of treat it like you would a watercolor, any work on paper.
Yeah.
Basically.
But if it disappears, oh well, make another one, right?
Supposedly
Right,
you can put it in a dark closet and it will get
It'll
dark
come
blue
back to
again.
blue again.
Yeah.
I've never tried it, but
Did that
supposedly
answer?
you can do it.
Okay. Yes.
Mhm.
there something that you added?
You know, I really don't know. If I throw some turmeric on it, it might mix in with the blue and make things turn green. You know, if I put the soap suds or whatever, depending like salt, it mixes. It's an interaction of the chemistry, and you know, there is a greenish thing that can happen, but not all the time. It's unpredictable. But you know, always fun. I'm always really surprised to see the green come up, and then when it dries, it might even shift to something else.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting process.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? And you want to say anything?
I'm the quiet one.
She's the quiet, the silent type.
I'm the Ringo. Is that
The Ringo?
It's Ringo.
Well, I'll speak for you. I'll say again, she is a fabulous artist in her own right, and colored pencil drawings, and her installations are legendary. I can't believe that she built years ago with someone at Katuitt Center for the Arts. That's where she harkens from, and she also has her own. What am I shilling for you? Installation business. You know, she will hang art for you, install work. But Katuitt, you do plays and you do well, you do the sets. But she made the trough that all my wires are hidden in. That was from what, 2015.
and you saved it.
I saved it overhead for all these years. Oh my God! And thank myself for saving it. But just, I mean, I've seen these installations with chairs hanging down, all kinds of things. And when we decided on this exhibition, the idea in 2015, that long ago. And I was thinking of someone else's photo historian, but he couldn't really do it. And so then I was thinking, you know, actually, who would be better? Michelle Law. And I don't know, do you regret it or?
Not a bit.
But we're so happy that we had her. And it was so funny. Then when I met with Rebecca, we were in your kitchen, and Rebecca was saying, well, I don't know if we can do that because it's just so out of the blue. And I said, that's the title. That's it.
It was your kitchen.
It was. You weren't
It was
even
your kitchen.
No, it was my
not.
kitchen. No.
I wouldn't let you in my kitchen.
You were sitting at your table.
No, we weren't. Oh God, here we go again. Well, we get along really well, except for right now. So, any other questions? Any complaints?
Did you have a lot more work and Michelle pared it down? Like, what was your process in, I mean, it's a beautiful display, you know, each individual artist, but also the three of them together. And I'd just like to hear a little more about how you chose it.
We had sort of decided early on how we were going to separate the room out so everybody would get 40 feet of wall. And Amy's was broken up on the two ends, and then Midge and Rebecca separately. And then looking at the work as it was in, I'd seen it along the way here and there, but you know, you have to be in the room with it and see how it flows. And Midge had quite a few pieces.
I know. I couldn't stop working. It was like a
48
maniac.
pieces, yeah.
I just said, pick what you want.
When you mentioned that you hadn't done it for a while, then you like made up for lost
I know.
time.
I was obsessed.
But the ones that are in the exhibit, I just think flowed so well together on her wall and worked so well with the other works, and just that's what kind of hits me when I'm doing that, is just how do they, you know, converse in the room when you walk in.
A great vision. A
Yes,
beautiful
we
vision
walked
for
in
that.
and we both we were so moved
Yeah.
looking at
Yeah.
it. Really.
Great job,
Beautiful
Michelle.
work.
Thank you.
Well, she is our 4th artist, and Jim Zimmerman is our 5th artist. So thank you for that. Any other questions? Yep. All right, I guess, should we retire to the exhibition for a little bit? You can
Yeah,
take
if you have
a
any
peek.
questions on
Yeah,
any of the
we'll be in.
pieces or anything, we'll probably be in there.
And there's
And then tomorrow night is the
yeah,
reception.
we have a reception tomorrow night. This